Welcome to Literary Lessons.
Today's topic is confessionalism poetry.
What in tarnation is that?
Glad you asked, my friend. Confessionalism poetry is a very personal, very self-reflective type of poetry. It's where the author often draws on deeply personal experiences that are oftentimes traumatic.
Wow, that sounds so cool. I wish I was around for confessionalism poetry.
Don't worry, you were, because although the movement started in the late 1950s and early 1960s, it technically never ended, because you can still see the confessionalism poetry movement in many of the poems that are written today. So, Evelyn, what are the chief characteristics of this confessionalism poetry movement?
Well, you could consider the chief characteristics to be the fact that they use personal pronouns like I, and they draw from personal experiences such as loss, depression, mental illness, and relationships that are romantic, platonic, and family relationships. And lastly, the emotions that they express in their work are often negative emotions. Well, Bianca, I have a question for you. What do you think the poets of the movement were rebelling against?
I'm glad you asked. The poets of the confessionalism movement were rebelling against poets writing earlier in that century. Those poets were writing about less personal things, and it was more academic and more structured. The poets of the confessional movement believed that poems should be more self-reflective, and that's why they started said movement. Well, Evelyn's gone. Would you like to join me on a walk through our Confessionalism Poetry Hall of Fame?
Yeah!
Alrighty, come on. No, you have to. What? Come on.
Wow, this looks like poet John Berryman, born 1914, died 1972, who wrote 385 dream songs about a character named Henry who was anguished and often deranged. Wow, this looks like poet W.D. Snodgrass, born 1926, died 2009, one of the founding members of confessional poetry who disliked the term confessional. He wrote the poem Heart's Needle in 1959 and had a combination of confessional poetry and a traditional style. Wow, this looks like poet Anne Sexton, born 1928, died 1974. She had an abusive relationship with her parents and suffered from postpartum depression, living in many institutions through her life, and began her writing as a therapy. She wrote her first book, To Bedlam and Partway Back, in 1960, and Live or Die in 1966, which won a Pulitzer Prize. Wow, this looks like poet Sylvia Plath, born in 1932 and died in 1963. Her father died when she was 8 years old and had been strict and authoritarian, which heavily influenced her poetry. One of her most famous poems is Daddy, which she wrote on October 12th of 1962.
Wow, what interesting poets.
There is much to be found in terms of confessional art as well. One confessional artist is Tracy Emin, who made this piece, My Bed, in 1998, and it reveals intimate details about her life. Another confessional artist is Louise Bourgeois, who uses highly personal images in her art. This piece is called Night Garden and was completed in 1953. It shows the softening of her artwork brought about by her family. Confessionalism can also be widely seen throughout the music world. Many musicians at the time wrote at least some confessional-style songs. An example of this is Sam Cooke, who wrote A Change Is Gonna Come, reflecting his personal experiences with racism. Confessionalism has very much carried on through and is still seen in many artists and songs today. Examples of this are Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers that talks about the lead singer's heroin addiction, and You Know I'm No Good by Amy Winehouse that talks about her dysfunctional relationships. Many songs from the beginning of the movement to today deal with personal and traumatic experiences of the lyricists and can be considered confessionalism.
Hello, and welcome to Fun Fact Corner. Would you like to hear a fun fact? Okay. First fun fact about confessionalism poetry. The term confessionalism was coined by the critic Emil Rosenthal. He wrote about poetry as confession, and that's how they got the name. Second fun fact. Anne Sexton was told to write confessionalism poetry by her psychiatrist. She wrote it as a type of therapy. This is very important to understanding the movement because it shows you how really therapeutic and personal these poems can be. A lot of people wrote it as a way to express themselves and things that had happened in the past. That's really what the confessionalism movement is all about, and it shows you how really traumatic and dark some of the poems can get. Those are all the fun facts for today.
That's all, friends. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to keep it lit-orary.
The poem tree, guys.
Poem tree?
The poets is what I was trying to... Can we start from the top?
Yeah. The issues that they talk about are often expressing negative emotions.
That's sad. Is it off-center? Yes. Is that going to bother me? Yes. If you...
Alright.
We need to stop.
Yeah.